Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. International trade community. This is such a great conversation going on here. Really hard to interrupt here. Robin and I had to sort of say, should we, shouldn't we? Sorry to interrupt, but we're so glad that you're all here. Thank you, both to the online audience and those of you here in the room. My name's Andrea Ratay. I have the pleasure and honor of serving as the chair of the New York District Export Council, and so pleased to invite you here today and to welcome you. On behalf of the New York District Export Council, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to the 18th annual, so in 2 years, come back, right? 20 is going to be big. This is a sold-out World Trade Week NYC Awards event. I mean, who isn't happy to be out and dressed for business? It's just great. So give yourselves a round of applause. So before we get into the program, I'd like to acknowledge the dignitaries who are in the room today. A warm welcome to TenaVel Thomas, the Port Director, Port of New York, New Jersey, New York Field Office, U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Always great to have CBP in the room. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize Robin von Puyenbroeck, the Executive Director of the World Trade Centers Association. He's also the co-chair of this event. And we're so pleased also to welcome our state and city officials who are here today representing Empire State, Global New York, NYC EDC, and the Mayor's Office for International Affairs. So we are open for business. I'd like to take a moment to recognize all of our sponsors. There's actually more, I think, than we've ever had before, thanks to our great World Trade Week committee. Our presenting sponsor today is the World Trade Centers Association, represented by Robin. The World Trade Centers Association was a silver sponsor at the 2019 in-person event, and then a presenting sponsor for the first time last year. Thank you, we appreciate that. And at the gold level, we have the Weissman Center for International Business, Baruch College, where you're all sitting today in this wonderful room. And Baruch College has been the home of this event since 2016, so such a strong and important partner on so many levels. At the silver level, we have a whole host of sponsors. I'll just quickly read them off, but we're so appreciative. The Icelandic American Chamber of Commerce, Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Rosenthal and Rosenthal, don't know if I saw Peter Clement, but he's here somewhere, TD Bank, UPS, the U.S., thank you, Bob, for that, the U.S. Council for International Business, New York City Economic Development Corporation, New York State Empire State Development, and Central National Gottesman, thank you all. And at the partner meeting level, because we're not done yet, the law firm of Meek, Shepard, Leo, and Pillsbury, LLP, thank you, Bob, I saw him earlier. And our supporting sponsors are Blue Tiger International, Dorian Drake International, thank you, Ed, FedEx, Jinboast, E-Commerce Tianjin Incorporated, Manor Trade Development Corp., thank you, David, and the New York and New Jersey Foreign Freight Forwarders and Brokers Association, thank you, Wanda, and FIT, thank you, Christine. Finally, the Maritime Association of the Port of New York and New Jersey is our media sponsor. So please join me in a really robust round of applause and a big thank you, because really, without the support of all of these sponsors, this couldn't happen. It really takes a village. World Trade Week NYC has grown and thrived over the past 18 years. Did I mention 18 yet? It'll come up again. And today supports the largest network of events in the region about international trade. The network of partner organizations continues to expand each year. That's thanks to Carmela Mamas from the USIAC and her team. Thank you for that. And many of the regions of the world are represented here today, along with an array of city, state, and federal agencies, as well as local chambers of commerce. You've already met probably a lot of representatives from various countries. I'm proud also to say that many of these organizations have been instrumental in helping grow World Trade Week over the years to where we are today. The number and range of events marketed under this brand have continued to grow and evolve, and you'll find the events listed on the WTW NYC 2023 website. Our 18-year success is evidence of the importance of international trade to the New York region. And as I said, today's program highlights the full spectrum, the full ecosystem in trade, from students to small businesses and to what will be a very timely panel on international trade. We will be presenting awards, scholarships to the next generation of international business leaders as well. And you'll meet a few terrific local companies who will be getting awards today. So before introducing our first speaker this morning, I would like to acknowledge the World Trade Week Steering Committee members for all their dedication and hard work. They started planning this in November, and look at where we are. So if I'm going to read the names, and if you would all just stand when I'm done reading, and then we will all give you a huge round of applause. Peter Bankston, New York Public Library. Susan Hedelman, U.S. Department of Commerce. Barney Lehrer, NIDEC, Webmaster. Carmela Mamas, U.S. Department of Commerce. Nancy Plager, I don't think she could be here today, but from the IWIC Foundation. Nicole Polidoro, the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. Wanda Sample, New York, New Jersey Foreign Freight Forwarders and Brokers Association. I'm on a time clock. Joe Schoonmaker, New York District Export Council Treasurer. Lena Skoo, without whom none of this would be possible. Weissman Center for International Business at Baruch College. Kinda Yunus, representing the ITAC. Brianna Leung, trade specialist intern with the U.S. Department of Commerce, and Catherine Prigoff, also a trade specialist intern with the Department of Commerce. If you would all stand, and let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Whew. So with that, I'm going to catch a breath, and I'm going to invite Dr. Mung-Soo Lee, the director of Weissman Center for International Business, Baruch College, and gold sponsor, up to the podium to give his remarks. His bio is in the program, and welcoming him back for his second World Trade Week. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your brief introduction, but nonetheless, I really appreciate. It is a great pleasure of mine to welcome all of you to Baruch College campus today for the annual New York District Export Council's World Trade Week NYC kickoff event of 2023. I want to take this moment to acknowledge the co-chairs of this particular event, partner organizations, and the sponsors, as well as the members of the organizing committee, and that make this event is actually come to life in such a spectacular event today. As part of a very large urban university, the City University of New York, Baruch College is one of 25 campuses of the CUNY, serves our great city, New York City, with close to 20,000 students and over 130,000 alumni members, mostly working in the tri-state area. Our student body reflects the diversity of the city we are part of, with about 110 different languages spoken any given day on campus, also about 160 countries of origin among students and faculty. Just think about it. I think it's a kind of a mini United Nations exist on campus at Baruch. Our students are smart, self-confident, engaged, and eager to join the world of international business and to make a positive contribution to our local economy here. I'm also delighted that some of our students are here today, joined by students from the Fashion Institute of Technology, SUNY, and also the Northeastern University in Boston. I really appreciate these scholarships are given to these students in recognition of our next generation of business leaders. I encourage you to talk to those students today and while you're here, and to consider them for their internships and jobs, okay? They need them and they are terrific, I'll guarantee you that they are stellar students. Many of you know my predecessor as a director of the Weissman Center, Professor Dr. Terry Martell. I don't know whether who is here today or not. And when I became director almost 2 years ago of the Weissman Center for International Business at Baruch College, we naturally had many conversations about the core mission of the center and also its future direction. Terry and I absolutely agree that it was important to continue our work connecting the college, Baruch College, and its faculty and students to the international business community and to help to foster an appreciation of the role of international business and international trade to the economy of the New York City region. So today's event is exactly in line with that spirit, and we are very proud to have been able to play an important role in the growth and success of this World Trade Week over the past almost 2 decades. I look forward to today's program with its stellar speakers and awardees. And as a marketing and international business professor, I'm also excited to learn more about the challenges and opportunities of digitizing the global supply chain from the people who know a lot about that particular topic. So finally, I'm also eager to hear from the SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises, that are being recognized today for their success in international markets. As a Baruch professor for over 3 decades, can you believe that? 33 years to be exact. Okay. I have had a chance to work with many of New York City small businesses and the entrepreneurs. So the companies being honored today truly reflect the vitality and creativity that is hallmark of New York City. So I want to congratulate all the awardees today, and thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. What a great welcome. I'd like to invite Robin von Puyenbroeck up to the podium now. He is, as I said, the Executive Director of the World Trade Centers Association and a key co-chair for this year's event and presenting sponsor. Robin.
Thank you, Andrea, and it's welcome again, everyone. It's hard to believe we were here about a year ago in very different circumstances, wearing masks, and everybody was spread out. So we were also, I think, partially hybrid. So it's very exciting to see everyone here alive and well and good health in this room. So thank you, Andrea, for your leadership with the District Export Council in making this happen. Dr. Lee, of course, congratulations with 33 years of tenure, but also for your hospitality, and also Val Thomas and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey for all the support in making this happen. Many people, of course, as was said, are instrumental to make this week happen, but I do want to call out Leni and Joe and Carmela, of course, for your friendship and all the dedication and the love that you put into making this happen. Now, the World Trade Centers Association is an international trade association. We're based in New York, and our constituents are, by far and large, small and medium enterprises. So that will help you understand why we think being engaged with you all is very relevant. So there's about 320 World Trade Centers all around the world. We're in nearly 100 countries. I think we're about 98 countries as we speak. And we're truly an interconnected business network. And World Trade Centers are not just the mixed commercial real estate that many of you will know, but also airports, seaports, inland ports, logistical hubs, industrial zones, free trade zones, even universities. And growing. So we see this as a very relevant matter to also be very strong and very connected in our local community here with you all in New York. Now, I had thought of certain remarks today. I don't know if you have 5 or 50 minutes. Did you give me 5? 5. But then I met this student here from Ghana. Where are you? There you are. So she made me completely change my mind about what I was going to say. So I'm going to put my notes on the side. We held our General Assembly of the association in Accra in Ghana about 2 weeks ago. We had over 300 business partners, people from World Trade Centers all around the world, many of them small, medium enterprises coming to Accra, to Ghana, looking for business opportunities in West Africa and in Africa as in general. And as the theme here today is sort of digitization of global supply chains, I just want to say maybe a few words about the opportunity in Africa, also for small and medium enterprises. And this is an area where Carmela and her team and many others sort of played a role as well. Because what we've learned there, and Dr. Lee, you said it, it's always important to also learn when you go to places, is that it's an incredibly undervalued and underestimated market, just because there's a tremendous lack of knowledge and a lack of a perception issue with opportunity in Africa. This is a country with now, a continent with the creation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, bringing together about 50 countries and a $3.4 trillion market. The population in Africa is 1.4 billion and is expected to double in the next 20 years. And if you then mind that about 70% of the population is under 25, you can only imagine what the demographics are from a growth perspective. 80% of that growth in population is expected to happen in urban areas. So you want to talk about logistics and supply chains, there's an opportunity right there. So I think when we talk about intra-Africa trade, for example, is only at a level of 14% of all exports within Africa. If you look at other regions, the Americas, Europe, Asia Pacific, the inter-regional trade is 50, 60 to even 70% in the case of Europe. And I'm just giving you some data points here because I do really believe that there's a tremendous opportunity in Africa. So when we talk about global supply chains, to think also of opportunities of companies in Africa. I met so many young entrepreneurs. It was unbelievable in technology, operating drone companies in the health sector, because the jobs are not going to come through employment from somewhere else. So everybody is an entrepreneur creating companies. There's a tremendous amount of talent there, tremendous amount of energy. So I really want to invite you to also think about the continent of Africa when you look at expanding, at exporting, looking for partners in other markets. There's a lot of opportunity there. Feel free to come and talk to me and my colleagues if you have some ideas there. But I thought just bringing this up because it's a very relevant topic when we talk about global supply chains, to make sure that the companies in the continent of Africa are included, not just for the economics, but also for a very important social impact narrative. So I will leave it at that, I think, within my 5 minutes, and then we can move on to the next step here of the program. Okay.
Thank you. I know I learned a lot. I feel like every minute in trade I'm learning something. Maybe you all feel that way, but that was very timely remarks as well. So at this point, we'll move into the awards section of the program, and Robin and I will be presenting awards to the 3 SME companies, and we'll be talking with them for a few minutes, and then we'll also be giving the scholarships that Robin had mentioned. So with that, Robin, I'll...
Yeah. So... So I will call you out, and please come on stage and maybe to the left side, right side from your side of the podium to take a photo up. So the Small Business Global Trade Awards 2023 of World Trade Week New York City goes to Zanderm. So congratulations. Last year I moved the furniture.
Yes, please. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Just tilt it forward a little bit. There we go. Right, like that. That's great. Good. Thank you.
Well done. And we'll be hearing from each of our awardees for a few minutes after this. Next up is the Innovation Award, presented to a company in the New York metropolitan region for leadership in developing a new idea or approach that has made a positive contribution to the field of international trade. I'd like to invite representatives from SNS Design up to the stage. So I'm going over there.
Congratulations. And the next award is the Rising Star Award. Goes to L.W. Pearl. Congratulations.
You want to kick off the next part of the program? There's a mic here, I guess.
Yeah, I can do it from here. No, we're getting closer to each other.
And
Yeah,
it's on.
I had a question for Zanderm. Like, I really want to learn a bit more about your products, because what is the vitiligo market and that product? That sounds like very, very alien to me. So, but you managed to build a phenomenal business from there. So, can you maybe elaborate a little bit about the product that you actually produce?
Thank you. Thank you so much also for this award. Thank you. So we started in about 2015. We launched on World Vitiligo Day, which is commemorates the death of Michael Jackson, and is now recognized by the UN and a world recognized day to celebrate people with vitiligo. Actually, we didn't recognize that vitiligo was a condition that needed attention. We were in the sun care system, and we were at a sun care show, and someone came up to us and said, hey, would this product that we were working with, would this work on vitiligo? And we looked at each other and we're like, what's vitiligo? And there was kind of a, history, since that point. But we, with the help of so many of the organizations that are sitting here in this room, helped us to protect ourselves, to export to meet companies all over the world. Thank you, Lennox. Thank you, Melissa Hill, who's not here right now. But you have given us the opportunity to expand, and we are shipping our products worldwide. It's a product that helps people. Sorry, I'm going back a second. But we developed what they call a cosmeceutical. It's a cosmetic for dermatology. So here in the United States, it's a cosmetic, and outside of the United States, it's needs to be compliant and everything else. We camouflage people with vitiligo. So if you're not familiar with what vitiligo is, so I said Michael Jackson, Winnie Harlow, it's basically your pigment, your melanocytes die, and you are left with white skin. It affects about 2% of the world's population. No discrimination, age, gender, ethnicity, anything goes, everybody's affected. So we created a long-lasting camouflage, and we ship it worldwide and help people. I think what keeps us going is also like the emails we get that are just people need it and they can't live without it. And 40% of our customers are male. It does not look like a cosmetic. It does not feel like a cosmetic. So it's easy to apply, and it's a camouflage, as we like to say.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. We're sort of doing a round robin of questions, just so you all know. So the next question is for SNS Design. And you've designed a wide range of industrial products for numerous companies, including some big ones like LG, Whirlpool, Eddie Bauer, Roscoe, and so many others. What are you currently working on that you can share with us?
Thank you so much. As usual, I'm always excited to work on a wide variety of things and products because everyone has different ideas, different needs, and market. And currently, I'm working on my own product, a medical device to reduce overdosage and wrong dosage in ER, because there's a big cause of deaths in hospitals and can be avoided. So I did get patent in 4 countries, waiting for 3 more to go, and then more will come on the way. So I'm really excited. I've spoken to a lot of medical directors of large hospitals, in contact with them, how to get this product to market, and talking to some other companies to raise funds. So that's one product, and the other one is for online, for entrepreneurs and startups, if they want to bring their own product to market and do it on their own at their own pace and the funds they have. So it's an online subscription-based program which will guide an entrepreneur step by step and connecting them with the right expert at the right time, because many entrepreneurs waste a lot of money and time because they don't know who to hire and when to hire, to end up wasting a lot of money and energy. And it's painful for startups when they have to put in their own money, hard-earned money. So it's so those are my own other two businesses. But otherwise, I'm working with a lot of other entrepreneurs, a doctor, and just wife and husbands, and small companies. So it's been a lot of exciting things happening. Even a father working with them.
So every day is different, right? Every day is different. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to hand this to you because Robin will be asking.
Yeah, I have the question everyone in the room will have. Looking at your website, you work with Michelle Obama, Beyonce, and Lady Gaga. Tell us about that.
So I own an embroidery and textile company, and what I do is I take designers' concepts and I make them into a reality. So I'll take them from a sketch all the way to either a runway product, or I'll take it to, for editorial. There is lots of last minutes. We just did the Met Gala last Monday. If anyone's familiar with fashion, they know. We were beating in the car on the way to the red carpet. So fashion is what they say it is. I get to work with phenomenal people. I get to work with such talent, and I get to dress them and make them feel the best that they can feel. And so I feel like my company that does the embroidery and the embellishment and develops the concept with the designers, I just feel so lucky to be in this space.
It's a true New York story, right? Thank you. Very exciting. So next question also back to Zander maybe, because you mentioned a lot about export markets and you're selling internationally. I think for many in the audience, companies, like how do you approach starting an export? How do you do the marketing? How do you venture abroad? So what has been your process?
The process is actually, in our case, very simple and quite complex. As Sarah said, perhaps 2% of the world population is affected by this kind of pigmentary disorder and has spots, but 2% is spread around the whole world. You're not going to find a room full of people unless there's a medical convention of people who have vitiligo. So we have to be able to reach this diverse populace. At first, we tried to do it through a direct distribution system, country by country. But we found the amount of customer service, because everybody needed a little bit more, was very difficult for most distributors to handle. So we started to go direct to customer, where we service the customers, and we do it all out of New York. Actually, we do everything out of New York. We make the product here, we distribute the product here. It's
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to do one more question for each of you, and then so we'll pass the microphone. We're getting the rhythm down. So I just wanted to ask you, what is your advice for someone starting out in this business? The various things that need to be looked at. What's most important?
The most important, I think, for any product you're coming up with has to have a need and a customer. Without that, there's no product and there's no success in the business. So most of my clients come up with these ideas because they had a problem and they wanted to create a better solution for this in terms of functionality, manufacturability, and usability. Everything needs to be put together, including packaging and branding. So we kind of guide them what is the most important points that they have to understand, and then what is the speed to market for your product? What's the most cost-effective way to get to the market as fast as possible? So we try to cut a lot of other steps, but keeping the foundation really strong. Like, what was the product intent for?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
We're going back to Lady Gaga. I want to stay focused also on the international market. So are you also venturing abroad? Like, how do you look at international markets? Or you have any international projects coming up?
Yes, I do. So I own the factory here in the Garment Center. And I also, because I create for everybody else, I create for big, big, big names. I manufacture their products. I said to myself, why don't I do this for myself? So I started my own brand and I sold it in my home country of Ireland. So I manufacture in New York, export to Ireland and to Europe. So for the last 2 years, I've been working on a contract. And it's been a very, very, very long process. But I finally signed a contract with the Olympics.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. I will be designing and manufacturing the opening and closing ceremony uniforms for the Irish Olympic team.
Wow. Can you share what color that will be in?
I cannot, no. This is the USA.
Good.
Maybe
Well,
they're listening.
thank you so much. And again, congratulations to all of you. We're going to try keep up with our time management, but we have two other important matters, which are announcing the scholarship recipients of the World Trade Week WCA Student Awards. So, the first award goes to Hei Lai Lam from Barry College here home in CUNY. Congratulations. Congratulations. Go on. So the good thing of a student getting an award is that it's, that it's not just a piece of paper, it also comes with a check. So it's a $1,000 scholarship. So congratulations. And the next scholarship is awarded to Isabel Rosa of FIT SUNY. Congratulations. I think you have some work to do with the Irish Olympics.
Okay, let's finish that up. Nice. Like that.
So while they're finishing up the pictures, I'd like to stay where you are. Everybody who got an award, sorry, we just want to call you back up for a group photo, and then we will move into the panel. So SNS Design, Zanderm, and Miss Olympics. That was,
And the students, right?
and LW Pearl, and the students.
let's
Yes,
get the
please,
students on as well.
please
Of course,
come,
come on.
sorry.
Of course.
Maybe if you come back to me. Pretty good there.
Well, that was fun, and congratulations to the scholarship winners, the awardees. I mean, all the stories that you heard today, too. And now we're moving to a very current story about digitization and international trade, which everybody in this room, I'm sure, is super interested in. I'd like to thank Nicole Polidoro and Wanda Sample for their assistance with pulling this panel together. And, you know, our goal at the New York District Export Council is to be a resource for New York City's small businesses. And so this year it was decided to take a look at the digitization of global supply chains. So we're really excited to have a great panel to guide us through this very innovative and rapidly changing space. I'd like to invite our moderator, Pete Mento, and our panelists to come up. Pete Mento is the SVP of Compliance at Traffic Tech. Declan Daly is the Chief Operating Officer at USCIB. Carly Gallagher is the Vice President of Business Development, Northeast Region for Avalon Risk Management Insurance Agency. J. Ross Pruett is the Business Development Manager for Maersk. TenaVel Thomas is the Port Director at Port of New York, Newark, New York Field Office, U.S. and Customs and Border Protection. So thank you, and I'm going to hand everything over to our illustrious panel. Thank you.
Thank you. What's always great about these panel chairs is how slimming they are for me. I always appreciate that. Thank you all so much for joining us, and especially I want a quick round of applause for this panel who agreed to join me today. Didn't have to. And this is quite a panel, as you'll see in a moment, so a quick round of applause if you don't mind. This is a business of paper. Now, I've been involved in international trade for as long as I could pick up a pencil. I come from a family of spice traders, which sounds romantic until you're sneezing out your nose at 9 years old in a pepper warehouse and wondering why everything hurts. But it was giant piles of paper. And then I went to sea. I was a merchant marine officer, which again sounds romantic until you realize you're just doing paper and being seasick. And you needed that paper to bring in the spices and all the other products that we're talking about. And no two pieces of paper looked the same, and they weren't the same language. They didn't come from the same places. And depending on where you're bringing all that stuff, it wasn't processed by the government the same way either. Then it came time to pay for that stuff. No banks operated the same way. But, huzzah! The internet was invented. By whom, I guess we'll never know. That was going to make it easier, right? We have all these magic boxes on our desktops. Clickety-clackety, wahoo, everyone. Problem solved. Nay, nay, my friend. Problem harder. Because we all had our own little way we wanted to do it. Whether it was companies, banks, corporations, nation states, or individuals, we all had our own way that we wanted to digitize the world. Made worst of which of all by transportation companies. Because aside from maybe lawn care and babysitting, you're going to find a harder group of people to try to bring into one standard. We all do it our own way, and we think of the way that we handle globalization as some sort of intellectual property. There is no one standard for how invoices look, how purchase orders are done, how bills of lading are actually put together. Everything is our own little special snowflake, and we don't want to give it away. Now, before I hand things over to the panel, we're going to talk about their own little special piece of information. Consider this. A long, long time ago, a group of people called the Knights Templar. You guys know who that is? And believe it or not, regardless of what our good friend Indiana Jones told you, I doubt that they had the Holy Grail. The Knights Templar would help people go across mass expansions, tons and tons of miles. And they didn't want to carry all their valuables with them. So with a piece of paper, a certain handshake, and a magic word, you would leave your valuables in one place and get paid for them in another. And they'd arrange for the movement of things one way or the other. They were the first to create international banking, and not the first, but one of the first. The Chinese had been doing it for a long time before them, but I don't want to mince words or start some sort of a fist fight here. But in a way, it was encrypted. We have so many problems to deal with on this panel. Standards is one of them. Security is another. Getting a number of different nation states to cooperate that don't necessarily want to. And then there's obsolescence. Everybody in this room has been playing with or listening to or hearing about or trying to get your children not to use ChatGPT. And for those of you who teach classes, you've been trying to figure out how to prove whether or not your students are using it. And then you take artificial intelligence and you connect it to something like quantum computing, which, depending on who you listen to, is 10 to 40 years away from being a reality. And absolutely, positively, everything that we know about digitization is obsolete. Our internet, our applications, our computers, our software is broken. So why build all this infrastructure to simply abandon it in a few years? Our world runs peacefully on commerce. And what do we do if the infrastructure for how we run it is suddenly in question? This is a big question, and you got some big brains on stage with me. I'm just a failed stand-up comedian with a customs broker's license. Fortunately, you got some people with answers. So, like Marvin Gaye said, let's get it on. You ready? All right. Ross, why don't you let folks, let them know what's on your mind, buddy.
I don't even know how to follow that one. That's quite special. But it's really interesting. My name is Ross Pruett. I work for a company called Maersk.
You may have heard of them.
And we, for those of you who may not know who we are an asset-based end-to-end supply chain. So we have our own warehouses and our own employees and our own vessels and our own containers and that sort of thing. So this whole thing of digitization is a big thing for us, because if you think about it, and I shared this with a couple, and I'll use it. It's how many of you, raise a show of hands, have ever heard the acronym WMS? A few of you. You know what it stands for? Anybody? No? Okay, so we'll put that in second place. Nobody? Warehouse was the first one, management and system. It really means, where's my stuff? If you're a logistician and you're into supply chain and you order something from Amazon, what do you want to know? Where is it, right? That's what you want to know. Well, that's a tricky question, and used to, it was kind of hard to get that answer. And so this whole thing, if I asked what digitalization means to everybody in this room, it's going to mean something a little bit different. It's a nebulous term if you really think about it. So if you have no clue what we're talking about, really, welcome to the club. I mean, that's a fair place to be, because it means so many things to so many people. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of what our company does and how we use it. And one of them is how many of you work for a company who has an ambition to be carbon neutral in the future? How many of you work for a company that the environment is important to? Yeah. How many of you don't care about the environment? Well, that's like nobody, right? Well, it's interesting. Without some pretty heavy horsepower, we're launching the first vessel this summer that runs on something other than diesel. We're a big polluter, and we have a goal to be green in not too many years. And the way we start that is a difficult process. And so everybody wants their carbon credit, right? How do you get that without digitalization? And we can do that. Another one is if you have a supplier who uses child labor or forced labor, how do you know that their supplier is actually playing fair? We passed legislation, not to steal anybody's thunder up here, but you know, we work with an artificial intelligence tool that goes and looks at that. So you can kind of look at maybe your supply chain. You can't do that without some pretty heavy digitalization in the supply chain piece. And a third one is just simply, how much inventory do I have? I mean, it could be very two-dimensional, very basic. And there's some value in blocking and tackling when it comes to figuring out things like that. So it is a big topic. It's huge, and it depends on where you kind of are in that supply chain process and what it is that's important to you. And so I'm excited to be here, and like Chet Atkins would say, I'm just a little bit below average, but here for you guys. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you. I'm happy to be old enough to know who Chet Atkins is. Declan, now this is, for some of you who actually are on the academic side or students of global trade, this is going to be a topic that I wish all of you who aren't here, I'm glad you're going to have an opportunity to learn about a particular part of our industry that most people only learn about when they have to because they have no time, and they learn about it by calling someone and then find out about it when it's far too late. So I'm incredibly happy, and we're so fortunate to have you here with us today to talk about this. And boy, does it fit the topic.
Thanks, Pete, and I'm certainly glad I didn't go after you with your intro either, and Ross, you did a very nice job going second. But anyway, let me just tell you quickly about USCIB, or United States Council for International Business. We are an international business association. Our focus is global policy in the multilateral system. Our members are US-based global companies from every sector and with operations around the world. And we are also the sole US representative of 3 of the biggest business organizations in the world: the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris, the International Organization of Employers, and then IOE2 is the other organization, Business at OECD. It's through these companies that we're able to provide the voice of businesses when they want to talk about global policies. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about the other side of our business, which is very important. We manage a product called the ATA Carnet in the United States. And the ATA Carnet is a standard customs document. It is jointly administered by the World Customs Organization and the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris. And it is a huge benefit to businesses of all sizes, especially the small and medium-sized enterprises. So I'm hoping that some of our awardees today and some of our small businesses, when they started out and trying to expand their business overseas, have perhaps used a ATA Carnet. Because what it does is, the benefits of it, it allows you to avoid having to pay duties and taxes. It's a standard document. So Pete, when you talked about some of the challenges that companies face with using all different documents in different countries having their own systems, this is unique in the fact that it's a standard document. It's used in all 80+ countries that are part of the system. It's in English. It's very easy to understand. You can fill out the document in advance in your home country. Again, like I said, it helps you avoid taxes and duties, saving small businesses who are starting out and looking to expand their business overseas huge amounts of money, especially if you're traveling to multiple countries. So its application today, and we have about, in the US, about 7,000 companies, and the US issues about 21,000 carnets per year. The global system issues about 200,000 carnets a year for goods valued at $25 billion. Anybody want to guess who the #1 carnet issuer in the world, what country? China? No, I'll give you a hint. They just rose to #1 in the last couple of years because of a big event that happened in Europe. It's a big hint. No.
The UK.
UK, it's UK. Because the UK moved out of the EU because of Brexit.
Yep.
Now all their companies are trying to expand their business internationally have to use a carnet going into Europe. Wow. The second biggest issuer is Switzerland. Third biggest issuer is Germany. And the fourth biggest issuer is the United States. The United States is the #1 in terms of goods value on a carnet. So again, hugely beneficial tool to companies of all sizes, but especially the small and medium-sized enterprises. So all these great things about the carnet, what's the one big problem with it? Anybody want to guess? No, it's been around since 1963. In fact, this summer, we're celebrating its 60th anniversary in Geneva at the World Chambers Federation. The big problem is it's paper. It's paper. And that paper document, as good as it is and all the benefits it provides, has inefficiencies built in for all the stakeholders. For the holders now, who have to travel with this carnet, and carnet comes from a French word for booklet, so it is a booklet that has to get stamped by customs at every border crossing. And they have to carry that, and God forbid they lose it, they're in a little bit of trouble. And then customs itself. So customs has inefficiencies. Holders show up at airports. Customs don't know it's coming. People are coming on the carnet. They have to go find someone who can process the carnet. So there's inefficiencies throughout the whole system. So we've been working, or the ICC has been working to digitize the carnet for several years now. And finally, a couple of years ago in 2019, they built the system. And it's complicated because you have to have a central system that's able to, in real time, track every transaction as it happens at every border crossing. And a carnet, too, can be used for multiple trips for up to 1 year. So there's a lot of transactions, a lot of border crossings on a carnet. So you can imagine there can be millions of transactions a year. And all that has to be tracked real time, fed into a central system, and then fed out to customs so they can access the data, too. And it has to allow the holder to be able to download the information onto their smartphone. So it's a big challenge. The good news is the system has been built. We've been testing it the last couple of years. In the US, our pilot port is JFK, and we've gone out to JFK quite a few times now training US Customs how to use it. And now we're in the process of rolling out some training, not just in the US, but all around in these 80 countries. And it's going to be quite a big challenge because you have to train all the stakeholders to use this new tool. But when we do eventually train them, it'll be a valuable asset, and hopefully it will enhance the experience overall and lead to more carnets being issued.
So, Declan, when I was 24 and cutting customs entries, I lost a carnet for like 24 hours.
See?
Yeah, it's like a piece of paper. Like it's literally like a thing. Like it's a thing. You don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those things still in our business. I mean, there's export licenses you have to decrement. There's physical pieces of paper still. It's 2023. I can deposit a check with my smartphone, but I got to use this piece of paper.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'm in for a treat. Now, normally, when somebody from law enforcement shows up at one of my parties, party's over. There's a lot of toilets flushing. I know.
Cover my
I know
ears,
it's bad.
right?
So many bad. But it's, as a customs house broker, and I've been one now for a lot longer than I care to tell all of you, I can say that one of the hardest jobs you could possibly have in modern law enforcement is dealing with the multifaceted law enforcement challenges that Customs and Border Protection faces. When I was a very young man, it was just called U.S. Customs. It was part of Treasury. They were primarily concerned with dealing with importers, trying to foster the concept of the American commercial side of things, trying to make sure people could import and export, gathering data, collecting data, dealing with smuggling. But now the challenges of their mission are massive. Now I'm telling you all right now, I offered to let the port director tase me.
He did.
Today. And we have witnesses that I did offer.
He did, we can confirm.
But I was turned down, sorry.
Yeah.
The opportunity that you have before you is one of a very few number of people. There aren't many port directors in America. And you have one of the largest ports in America. And she's here. So TenaVel's been kind enough to come in today and talk about the incredible challenges. And just imagine the amount of trade, traffic, people, luggage that comes through this port. The diversity and the challenges that come with that. It is daunting, to say the least. So on behalf of everybody here, not that I don't love the whole panel, I do, you're all special to me. But Madam Port Director, the fact that you would come and join us today, it's quite a privilege, so thank you.
Thank you, Pete. You guys are much too kind. Thank you. So my name is TenaVel Thomas. I am the Port Director for Customs and Border Protection at the Port of New York, Newark. Massive port. Under my area of responsibility, I have the 4th busiest airport within the entire country, which is Newark Liberty International. And I have the busiest seaport on the eastern seaboard, and I say it that way because sometimes, depending on the month, we fluctuate, right? One month we would be the busiest port in the country. The next month we're kind of demoted back down to number 2 or number 3. But we are very proud that for the entire COVID period, we became the number 1 port in the country. And the reason, thank you. And one of the reasons that we were able to do so is because of our public-private partnerships that we have, not just with CBP, but certainly with the Port Authority, working with customs brokers and a lot of other entities that we work with every single day to make sure that we are effectively facilitating trade through the United States. And particularly for me, being selfish as a port director at the Port of New York, Newark, making sure that we're doing it in a great way and that we continue to keep the country safe. Just to give you a little bit of my portfolio, and then we'll certainly talk about the digitization portion and the way how all of us, what it is that we do kind of meld into each other and making sure that we have effective flow of trade. So I have 1,200 employees that are assigned under me. That consist of officers, agricultural specialists, import specialists who's looking at the trade and the commodities as it's coming in, making sure that it's being valued at the price that the importers state that it is, or it is a actual genuine product. I have general aviation locations as well. So aside from Newark Liberty International, I have 5 other general aviation airports throughout the New York, New Jersey area. So that includes Stewart Airport, Westchester Airport, Morristown, Signature, which is located at nearby the Port of New York, Newark, and also Teterboro as well. If you've ever taken a cruise out of the New York, New Jersey area, the cruise ship terminals are also under my area of responsibility as well. So we have both on the New York side and under the Jersey side. So it is a vast operation. And I'm sure right now you're all thinking, man, how the heck do they do that with 1,200 employees, right? I think about that every day. I actually, I was telling my fellow panelists here, before I came here today, I spent 2 hours trying to figure out how are we gonna do more with less, right? Because as an agency, we've set the bar so high with facilitating effective trade and travel through the United States that we've shown that we've been nimble, but it is hard, right? It is hard, and we wouldn't be able to do that had it not been for us being able to work effectively with our partners, like I mentioned before, but really relying on our technology. And specifically, one of the things that we recognized very quickly within CBP, especially during the pandemic, there was this saying that they would say, like, boxes don't complain, but people do, right? Before the pandemic, that's what it was. Like, the boxes, they don't complain. But the people, if you make them wait at the airport a little bit longer, everybody's always in a rush, they start complaining, right? And they complain loud, people start screaming, they complain, right? What happened during COVID, nobody was traveling, right? Passenger counts dropped significantly. But then guess what was going up? Those boxes were going up. And guess what started complaining? Those boxes started to complain, right? Because think about it. We went from a as-needed basis when we're shopping on Amazon to just in case. How many people bought a significant amount of boxes of toilet paper just because you were concerned that you were gonna run out, right? And all of that, as you're purchasing those items, it's coming in through our ports, coming in through the Port of Newark, and coming in internationally, that we're having to check that to make sure that these are legitimate products that you're purchasing, right? So that was a very interesting twist for us. And one of the things that we recognized that we had to do, again, because we weren't getting more staffing, is to work a lot smarter, use our technology, being able to digitize certain parts of our job functions to be able to do so, right? So we relied on our intel. We started having officers working within intel units to be able to identify those products, those shipments, potentially those passengers who were of higher risk for entering into the country. The other thing that we started to realize that was a big challenge, and potentially, especially for you, the consumer, as you're purchasing items, is how do you know that the items that you're purchasing are legitimate, that they're genuine products, and even more so for the United States, as Ross mentioned, not being created using forced labor, right? I don't know if anyone in here has heard the acronym UFLPA, or you've seen UFLPA. So that stands for the Uyghur Forced Labor Protection Act. And that was recently signed within, it's an initiative that started with the White House, and that said, if there are any products, any goods that are being shipped into the United States that the government had a reason to believe that was created in part or in whole with the utilization of forced labor, that CBP has the right to detain those products. And the onus of proving that those products weren't created utilizing forced labor was on the person who was importing it, or on the company who was importing it. Why is that important to you, right? Because every single one of us at any given time could be an importer. If we go online, we go on Amazon, we're purchasing items, and we don't know our supply chain, we put ourselves at risk for that, right? So the government, along with enforcing UFLPA laws, we also work very closely with other agencies to be able to. We have trusted partnerships with them so that they can say, hey, we've checked our supply chain, we know that it's good, and they share their information with us, they share data with us, and we could have them as trusted partners. There's 2 programs that we have that allows them to do that. That's one of them is the Customs Trade Protection Act, or CTPAT Partnership Act, where they say, hey, I know my entire supply chain. We put you through a review and ensure that you are that, and you get to be able to expedite your products as they come in. And then most recently, there was a section that was signed, Section 321, which basically says for every 1 day, importers are allowed to have their items up to $800 worth of it be duty-free, or $800, you don't have to pay taxes on those items. That, over the past 3 years, grew exponentially because of the growth in e-commerce. We don't think that that's going down. E-commerce is responsible for 85% of the shipments that we receive into our ports, all of our ports, not just the Port of New York, Newark. So it's constantly things that we're looking at. But again, we are not able to do what we do for CBP. We can't do it alone, and we rely heavily on our partnerships to be able to do that. So I am very excited to be here today, just share a little bit about what we do. I love CBP, as you can tell. I think we have the best job in the country. That's, of course, being biased, if you will. But no, at the end of the day, on its fundamental basis, we're responsible for keeping bad things and bad people out of this country while effectively moving the trade and processing passengers. And we're very, very proud of that. So, Pete, thank you so much for having me.
you.
Very excited to talk about it.
Thank you. All right. Well, you wanted to go last, but Carly Gallagher, every one of us on this stage can tell you stories about how absolutely horribly the supply chain could go wrong. As a sailor at sea, I can tell you stories about fires in containers when you're 1,000 miles away from port. I can tell you about 60-foot seas and 30-foot swells, and watching men and women that have been going to sea for 20 and 30 years just retching. I can tell you about every single container on the top deck being ripped off the ship and going overboard. I can tell you stories. But I got a feeling you can tell me better ones. Marine insurance, maritime insurance, how we manage to find ways to deal with bonds, how we deal with the financial aspects of loss have also been a problem when it comes to, first of all, getting people to take it seriously for, I don't know, centuries, And then also finding ways to make it easily digitized when there, again, are not standards has been a problem. So we're lucky to have someone here to discuss that. So go ahead, terrify us, have fun.
Thank you, Pete. That's quite an introduction. And this is an impressive act to follow. So I'm honored to be on this panel and part of this conversation. And it's funny because I consider myself a very positive person and a glass half full type of person. But in my living, that's what I do. I make it so people don't sleep at night, right? So I have to add a little bit of the gloom and doom and the risks and challenges to this conversation. But it's a really important part of the conversation. So as my panelists have all been saying, you know, we come from historically a paper industry. Airway bills, bills of lading, delivery receipts, customs bonds previously were paper, carnet bonds still are, right? And so as we've entered into this world of new efficiencies, along with that becomes a great increase in cybercrime that goes along with it. So we're all storing large volumes of data on our networks and our systems now that are vulnerable, that could be compromised. And we all have this growing dependence on technology. And so, you know, we need that technology to stay operational. So what happens when it fails? So I'd like you all to just pause for a moment and imagine that tomorrow you log onto your computer to discover that all of your data has been held hostage until your company pays $1 million to a cyber criminal. Right? What would you do? Like if one of your systems isn't working or your email isn't working for an hour, you know, how much that's an interruption for you. You know, so how would your company react? And if that made, you know, put you in the position that you had a total systems outage for, let's say, 2 weeks, what would the impact be on your company if that happened? Ransomware is the largest source of cybercrime today. And in the transportation industry, from June 2020 to June 2021, we saw an increase by 186% of ransomware attacks weekly. So huge increase in this COVID era and as we're relying more and more on technology. The average ransomware claim is $4.5 million is the average cost to a company. And the average downtime for a company is about 11 days. So 2 weeks before they can get back up and operational. So it is just critical that when we're talking about our automation, it's not trumping the importance of cybersecurity, right? There was a recent study done by Descartes of a forwarder and brokers benchmark study of the industry. And 77% of logistics companies cited that investments in technology was their top strategy to address the ongoing challenges of the supply chain and to advance automation and digitization. Of those top performers, they said that technology was a fundamental part of their growth strategy. And when they looked at their competitors' advantages, they said the companies who were offering these customer self-service portals where they could book their shipments and track their shipments and all these things that we want to see right now, those were the ones who had the competitive advantage right now. So this transformation is propelling this industry into the future. But what happens when you can't access these fantastic systems due to a cyber breach? So while we're focusing on this importance of digitization, it's critical to prioritize the cybersecurity at the same time. Truly, the bad actors and the cyber criminals, I think they're advancing just as fast or faster than the technology, right? They're always one step ahead. And what is more impactful today than disrupting the global supply chain? So thinking about a few different ways, some of my horror stories, right? Would be, there was a, I'm not gonna name names, but there was a large global customs broker and freight forwarder who suffered a cyber attack last year. They had to have a complete systems outage for 3 weeks in order to stop the damage from continuing. They weren't able to book shipments, track shipments, clear entries. They actually had to tell their customers to go to their competitors in hopes that they would come back to them when they were back up and running, right? How hard is that to do? Their initial report said that they lost $60 million in demurrage charges and just in the expenses to investigate what had happened and to restore their systems and remediate the situation. So not to mention the reputational harm that they had as well. So this had a significant ripple effect on the entire global economy and the supply chain. And actually, one other thing is they're still dealing with lawsuits today. So this was over a year ago, and they're still dealing with the lawsuits that are still coming their way from customers and other parties that were affected by this attack. And then, just a little other food for thought in other ways that this could affect us of, you think of airlines. When an airline is disrupted for even a couple hours with their systems, we hear about it on the news, right? Of, ABC airline had issues this morning. All of the airports are backed up with people waiting to get on flights. So what would happen if one of these bad actors actually breached the entire system of one of our major airlines and that airline wasn't operational for days or weeks at a time? That'd be significant, right? And, as the automation is continuing with trucks, right? The scary thing about this is the cyber criminals can hijack some of these systems to actually take control of the vehicles and do things like derating the engine or, interfering with the brake system. And that's just terrifying. So now we're not talking about just significant financial loss for a company, but you're actually looking at bodily injury and liability suits because of a cyber attack. Warehouses. I mean, the advancements with AI and robots is fascinating of what's being done in warehouses to keep up with inventory and e-commerce and stocking shelves. But Amazon is using, I believe it's 520,000 robots right now in their warehouses. And they're also testing residential drone deliveries in different areas. So, again, incredible advancements in technology, but you have to look at the other side of it to say, well, what happens when somebody interferes with that? So it's just an inevitable part of doing business today, and you really have to ask the question of, it's not if it's going to happen to my company, it's when it's going to happen to my company, and be prepared. So, what can you do about it if you know in some ways it's inevitable that this might cross your door at some point? There are many ways that you can be better prepared when this does happen, like just having this conversation and thinking about it. And the number one thing I would say is to have a cyber incident response plan. So your company should know, if this happens to us tomorrow, what are we doing? What's the first thing we do to react? This is critical, and should be part of every company's business continuity plan and crisis management plan now. I have so many clients, or just in general, we think cybersecurity is an IT issue. It's not just an IT issue. It has to be addressed from an executive management standpoint in conjunction with IT, of really working together as part of this business plan. There's tons of other risk mitigation strategies. I know we're kind of on a tight timeline, but just to say a few of them, things like backing up your data and encrypting your data. If you're hit with a ransomware attack, but you can restore your systems from a backup, you can avoid potentially having to pay that ransom, right? If you can get access back a different way. Backing up, updating and patching your software regularly. Of course, unique complex passwords. Really critical is MFA, or multi-factor authentication, which might be a phrase that more and more people are familiar with, or you're using at your company, you don't even realize you are. This is a game changer. This is that two-step process that you're trying to log onto your computer and you have to use your phone as a second device to give you access. So that whether that's through facial recognition or biometrics like your fingerprint, or using one of those time-based one-time passwords that gives you a code that's good for 30 seconds to get in. Microsoft says that 99.9% of cyber breaches are stopped by using MFA. So if there's one thing you could take back to do and implement to improve your security, it would be multi-factor authentication. The other big thing is using VPNs, or virtual private networks. So this hybrid and remote work model is here to stay. We all know that. But we are much more vulnerable because we're using everybody's home internets as access points, and everybody has 3 devices probably that they're using, accessing from hotspots or home internet devices. So having that secure virtual private network goes a long way. Having ongoing vulnerability scans done of your organization, like a wellness check of having these scans run on your system to identify any red flags. Having security awareness training. I probably get something from my IT team once a week saying you have to do this 5-minute course on ransomware, or clicking on that email, or those phishing attacks, right? So that's really important to have all of your employees and your executive management team doing that. And then, last but certainly not least, in terms of a risk mitigation strategy, would be implementing and understanding your cyber insurance program. So many of those strategies that I just mentioned are included in a comprehensive insurance program where they're giving you the pre-breach services, like saying, here's the vulnerability scans, here's security awareness training, and then even better, the post-breach services for 24/7 access to a hotline. If you're breached on a Saturday or on Thanksgiving or something like that and can't access your insurance broker. And then they also provide you with these, response teams, crisis management, to say, here's a negotiator, here's a breach coach, here's an investigator, here's a forensic expert to actually help your company as soon as something happens so you can respond quickly and effectively. So, in addition to that, it's going to actually give you the insurance coverage for the ransomware losses, the business income loss. If you're non-operational for 11 days, how much income have you just lost, right? There's a lot of funds transfer fraud going on, and then you're going to get lawsuits as well. So that's just a real brief overview of it, but hopefully that just gives you some concrete ideas of ways that you could be better prepared and hopefully sleep tonight.
Anybody want a drink? Well, I didn't expect everyone to be a bunch of chatty Charlies up here, so I was going to have to move the conversation along a lot more. Just one quick question of everyone, then we're going to hand it over for questions for the panel, the interactive portion. With the exception of our friends that are managing the ATA side of things, Carnet, and customs, they have no competition. If there was secondary competition for customs, it would make my job so much more interesting. But there is not. And the same thing go. However, when it comes to marine insurance, casualty, anything that has to do with risk mitigation, and with vessel operators, and with asset-based logistics firms, certainly customs house brokers, although who else would anybody want to go to? We all have competition, and there's a profit motive to what we do. So you force cooperation with what you do. When you create a system, we must come to you and work on your language, and all of our systems are built to interact with you. However, when it comes to us, we have no forced way to force us to work together. And we need to find some way to create the means of cooperation. And I know there are ways that vessel operators have found ways to cooperate. I don't know if there's ways that your industry has found to cooperate with one another. We've been forced to cooperate as customs house brokers because of the desire and the need of us to cooperate with our regulatory bodies. But other than that, I'm not sure if there's anything on the horizon or anything that you're working on that you know of that you could possibly share before I let everyone ask, I'm sure, the millions of questions that must be out there.
There's really nothing that I'm aware of in our industry, that's really an opportunity to collaborate in that way. I think that there's a mutual respect within the industry that everybody's, in our field is trying to do the right thing and offer this good product to be out there to protect our clients. But yeah, it would be nice in a sense to have that type of collaboration, to have it be a more uniform front.
Just don't trust each other.
Right. Exactly.
I don't need other freight forwarding companies seeing my information.
Right.
I'd love to see theirs. And I think it goes vice versa. Any of you here that have competition, you would love to know what your competition's information is. And again, we have the Federal Maritime Commission to stop you guys from seeing each other's, and vice versa. You wouldn't want them seeing yours either. Right? So, in any case, is there anything that you guys are working on, your group of people?
In terms of collaborating,
data, finding ways to share data.
Share data, I would say not unless it is required that it be made public, and for lots of reasons, right? This is people who are, for example, storing stuff at our warehouses, right? Putting it on our trucks. They probably don't want that made available, hence the data breach piece, right? That's why we're guarding against things like that. So I think that competitive friction, if that's the right way to look at it, might serve a greater good in that competitive environment, because it really is foundational, I think, and I would defer to the marketing professors in the room on this one, but I think value chain would have something to say about that, right? This is where, if you come to us, we're not the cheapest game in town, right? But if you want reliability, and if you want, and you can dollarize the error and variability within both supply chains and demand chains, and a lot of people don't talk about demand chains, but that's, I think it was I think you said, if there's no customer, you really don't have a product, right? So if you can understand those that variability and assign a risk piece to that and do it better than a competitor, then you, by definition, have created more value. And I really don't want my competitors to know what our secret sauce is, because we do a really good job in that space.
It's profit motive to keeping that information. And you have shareholders and they have
Right.
expectations, and let's just be honest. I mean, that's an important part of how you create value for your customers and value for your shareholders. That's what I'm saying, is there's no reason for you right now to do it, because you're not in the business of sharing information. You're in the business of creating value for your customers and your shareholders.
And I think that there's another aspect to it too. It's one is if you you see over time, and all of you, no matter what your role is, you might be a student, right? And what's changed in the last 10 or 15, 20 years is you go onto Blackboard or whatever platform you're using, and you generate a classroom chat that runs from Wednesday to Sunday night. That didn't used to exist back in the day, right? It just didn't. But it makes it. But if you go to other universities, they do that too. And so you're starting to see a harmonization of methodology, and I'm picking on academics but you're seeing that also within supply chain operations, whether it's a warehouse, whether it's a shipment, whether it's a goods, a distribution center to customer kind of thing. I think you see a harmonization of the expectations that's driven out there in the market. Again, going back to market-driven things. And so I think standardization may play, but I don't think necessarily that the data and the specifics and profitability and such like that. I don't know that I could frame a reason to have that exist.
Understood. Do we have time for questions, or are you going to kick us off the stage? Okay. I'm not in charge of the microphone, so who's going to do the microphone for the questions?
Real quick. Hey, Peter.
What's up?
Ross, this question is for you. I'm surprised that nobody's mentioned the Digital Container Shippers Association, which Maersk is one of the founding members of.
Well, thank you for bringing that up.
Maybe a couple minutes on that program and that initiative for everybody.
Sure. That's a very interesting one. One of the things that that our company and others also are, again, it goes back to this whole thing of standardizing, how we do business. I think, in the spirit of time, if you want to talk about that maybe after the meeting, we certainly can. But it's an interesting one. All these fragmented ways of doing stuff that your opening comments were. We started a process that's very exciting, and thank you for bringing it up. But it's kind of interesting. Imagine if everybody did things very similarly, how much more efficient that would be. And that's an example particular to digitization that is a pretty exciting one. It's just standardizing the way some things are done in an electronic environment. So good, thank you for that.
Nice save.
If I may, I just wanted to add a little bit to what Ross stated, and certainly what he was talking about, just sharing the information. I can tell you certainly from a CBP perspective, and meetings and discussions that we will have with brokers and others within the industry, what we have found is just sharing a little bit about the way how each one of us does our mission or like our responsibilities. You do see where everyone sort of learns from each other, right? And then that accountability piece happens. So it's not so much that, intricate data sharing that's happening, but what is happening is that everyone is finding efficiencies in how they can work better. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So you're not giving away the secret sauce, if you will, but I'll share the sausage with you. That's not a problem, And I think that's a great a
If we
great
could just
paradigm.
find one person to trust.
Yeah.
None of us seem to want to trust. Yeah, exactly. We don't want to trust one another. We don't want to trust the government. We don't want to trust. Yes.
Quick questions. One, geopolitics was a conflict with China going on. Where do you see the future of, especially the World Trade Organization? And they claim that there will be two World Trade systems with China and the United States. The second question is contracts. Cryptocurrency, there's a movement toward smart contracts using crypto. Are you looking into that, and what's the future of that? Thank you.
I have plenty to say. The use of crypto and smart contracts is fascinating. And I know that there's been a lot of work by startups, digital currency companies to do exactly that in order to take out so much of local, countrywide regulatory and bring it to a truly digital, compartmentalized contract. And there are digitally native logistics firms that are trying to bring that as part of the offering. I think you're probably looking at maybe a year or two away from someone offering precisely that. So, sure, they're all going to hate it. But the world is not just the United States, which we should probably mention on World Trade Days. So, a great deal of trade happens outside of this particularly wonderful country, and I think that it will continue to be the case.
That is very true.
So that's very important. And then geopolitically, between the United States and China, I think that we should always bear in mind that those particular two countries have always had a contentious relationship. They always find their way back home. I'm going to China since I was 12 years old. And one of the most wonderful things about my life is how incredibly rich my professional relationships have been with the Chinese people. Never had a problem. Politics goes one way, it goes another. I've been going to Nigeria since I was a young man. Doesn't matter where the politics goes. My relationships with those people have always been wonderful professionally. I can say the same thing for the Middle East, for South America, for Micronesia, for Asia. Business always finds a way to survive, and it's a beautiful, hopeful thing. Always outside of politics. We'll find a way to make it work.
Well said. Yep. Yeah, that's great.
Is it a quick question, John? Otherwise you can...
We'll make it a long answer. Go for it.
This is for Ms. Gallagher. So out of all the companies that have been victimized by ransomware so far, do you have a sense of a percentage of how many give in and pay, or how many find a way to fight it without paying?
It's a great question, and I don't have a specific percentage, but every situation is completely different. Because what's really interesting is you could go ahead and pay the ransom, and you might be paying a terrorist organization and have no idea, but later receive fines from the FBI or from government agencies for engaging with a terrorist organization. So that's why every situation is so unique to know, do you have data backup somewhere that you can restore it without paying the ransom? And in cases where you do have to pay the ransom, having the insurance policy does help back up that loss to you. But that's why we use, trained negotiators in those ransom situations. And sometimes in the news, you might hear that different companies suffered a cyber breach, but they never specifically name it as ransomware. And the reason could be is they have ongoing negotiations going on with the cyber criminals. So I don't have a specific percentage, but I can tell you it completely varies. And sometimes it's paid and sometimes it's not. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you to the panel.
This was really hard to break into. Wanted this to keep going. Thank you for all the information and your time. Really great insights for this audience. And also thank you to the audience members for your questions. So at this time, just one quick public service announcement. Peter Bankston over there has the answers to the trivia quiz. So feel free to see Peter if you want to get the answers. And I'd like at this time to introduce Kinda Yunus up to the podium, and she'll give our closing remarks.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Kinda Yunus. As Andrea said, I'm the executive director of ITAC. We're a consulting organization focused on assisting New York City manufacturers. Basically, we help them with their growth, whether it's their top line growth or their bottom line growth. So on behalf of the World Trade Week Steering Committee, it's my pleasure to conclude this event today with a few words. We decided today to focus on supply chain because it is critical. One of them, I'm going to try to keep it short. I know we're a little bit over time, but one of the examples that I wanted to share was, when you think about multinationals, one of the biggest success stories is Apple. And we all know of Steve Jobs, but really it's Tim Cook who is behind Apple's phenomenal growth. And the reason why that growth was achieved was through supply chain optimization and control. They were able to really control and digitize everything, and they were able to cater to changing consumer demands while at the same time ensure against risks of interruption on the supply chain side. I was also going to say that at ITAC, we work with manufacturers day in and day out. And we just heard a whole bunch of topics today about the supply chain, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it is forced labor. And I can assure you that we discuss these topics every single day with our businesses. One of the things that we're seeing more and more here in New York is vertical integration as well when we talk about supply chain. So I can give you, last week I saw 2 manufacturers and they both told me a very similar story. The first one, he's a lighting manufacturer, and he was getting tired of waiting. He said he was waiting forever for his suppliers to send him glass. And so what he ended up deciding, and that decision was made easier by the fact that prices were also getting higher and higher. So what he ended up deciding was to acquire a glass blowing company, and he just brought it in-house, and was able to control costs and production that way. And we're hearing more and more of these stories. So, that same day I saw another business. They make appliances, and they buy a lot of fabricated parts. They buy millions of dollars worth of fabricated parts. And again, same story. Basically, a lot of his suppliers had closed their operations, and he was suffering as a result. And they decided to build a fabricated parts operation from scratch within the business. So we're seeing more and more of that, just to minimize the time to market, to optimize scalability. And I think it's a little bit of a trend that we see here. So I could give you many more examples, but really the point I'm trying to make is that even locally in New York, a lot of the businesses are laser focused on controlling their supply chain, digitizing it, optimizing it. So it'll be interesting to talk about how that evolves at our next events. To conclude today's event, I would like to thank once again all of our fantastic sponsors, speakers, industry experts. We are so grateful to you. Our network of partners, that network keeps growing year after year. And for that, we are extremely happy and grateful. Baruch College, obviously, for allowing us once again to host this great event here. And of course, the District Export Council and the World Trade Week Steering Committee members, Lena, especially you, our wonderful leader, for all of your hard work. Thank you. I would also like to congratulate once again the companies and individuals who were recognized during today's awards ceremony. You inspire us, so thank you. And last but not least, I would like to thank our audience, all of you here at Baruch College, but also all the participants who are joining us online. We are very happy to have you. We hope you enjoyed this event as much as we have. And enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. For those of you who are here with us, we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you very much.
We'd like to just call Joe Schoonmaker up to the podium. Joe is, I think he's a lifer on the deck. He's been doing this for almost 30 years in various capacities as chair, as treasurer, and without him, we couldn't do this. Joe, thank you so much for your service to the deck. Thank you.
Super.
And thank you so much for coming. We'll see you next year. Probably same place, same time. Enjoy. There's going to be still some networking till 4 o'clock. outside, so please help yourselves and finish up your conversations.